Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Thursday. And with me, Chantelle, definitely a hostess with the mostest, and Dr. Dennis, today again with me, looking forward. We're going to be talking about the discourse of hatred. Eek, not a nice word, but there's a lot of it going around at the moment. So let's just see how we can flip that back into what it's meant to be, shall we? Love, because that's really well, love doesn't really have an opposite. Love is, it's all over, right? It's just in the air. So, what we choose to do with it, lack of love or an abundance of love, it's always up to us. Hello, Lisa D. Hello, Leanne. Nice to see you all. Just in terms of the shows coming up this week, tomorrow, 6 o'clock, same time, got a lovely Holly Ballio, no, Holly Baglio on. And then on Saturday, Penny Bradley, both from Montauk, very different eras. Super interesting guests. So join us for that as well. Then, of course, Sunday we have the usual Sunday loop, and Jesse will be on this Sunday again. Okay, guys, without any further ado, ta-dam. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Doing good. How are you, dear?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Nice to see you again. How's it been going in your world this past week?
Yeah, it's been very busy as usual. I've been doing a lot of research. I am also a minister, and as a minister, I've been doing some Bible studies here recently, and I like to post a lot of it on Facebook. I like to put a lot of it out. And our Bible study last week was on mercy and forgiveness. You know, which unlike hatred, we do not have very much of a surplus of in this world, definitely. And that's what got me thinking about some other things along that line, Shanty. That the world is unbalanced. Definitely, like you said there at the beginning, we don't have a surplus of love, unfortunately, but we do have a surplus of hatred going on here. And
Mm,
why is that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. What is doing this unbalancing thing to us? We're kind of off kilter here. We're not right. Definitely, things are not going right in this world. And the number one thing about hatred is that hatred is very dark. It's a darkness unto itself in many ways. It doesn't even have to be a supernatural darkness. This is a human darkness too, without a doubt. But when you put those two together, you have extreme darkness. And that darkness, the fuel for it, that runs off the gas, the petrol for the darkness is hatred. It runs off of this stuff. It uses it. It weaponizes it against us in many aspects. And the darkness is good about weaponizing stuff, just like our governments are. Governments of the world are good at weaponization,
they are the
and we
darkness,
even
Dennis. The governments
yeah,
are the darkness. Let's just, I mean, we're speaking one and the same thing here.
absolutely, and but here on a personal level, people weaponize stuff like that too against each other sometimes, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But the thing about hatred, it is one of the most volatile emotions out there. Just in this past week, we had a horrific incident in the United States where a man was murdered because of what he talked about, the speeches he gave, the discourse that he was involved in. He was murdered for that. Now a new word, a new phase has come into the English language called political murder. Now, you never heard about that. Of course, we've always heard the term assassination, but political murder now is part of our vocabulary, unfortunately, and that is a sad state that we have found ourselves in. That they are actively, if I disagree with you, and we're never going to agree on everything 100%, Shanty. You and I never, none of us are never going to agree 100% on what everything, but we can always agree to disagree, and we can do it in a civil way. We don't. That doesn't mean we start banging each other's heads against the wall or shooting each other. or whatever the situation is, just because we don't agree with something. But that's what discourse is about. Discourse means to discuss things, and you do it in a civilized, civil fashion. But when I start saying, well, I don't like what you're saying, Shanty, I'm going to shut you up. Okay, I'm going to shut you down, or however you want to term it. We can call it counsel. You can be counseled. And that is a bad thing that's happening in the world today. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you need to hate them for that. And hatred is running definitely rampant in our world. And it is increasing more and more every day. And this is a very distinct darkness that we have to contend with in our lives. And it's just like, people ready to flip you off on the road if you happen to cut in front of them and all that. Or if you just happen to say something somebody doesn't like, they're ready to curse you out for it, and when I got deep in, when we run upon these things, and I go to the Word of God a lot of times to try to understand and see how these things are, And a lot of people disagree with me on this. Oh, it's just, the Bible is just a book written by a bunch of men. Well, that is true in one sense, but you got to remember the Word of God actually comes to us through the Spirit of God. It was written spiritually that way. We have to read it spiritually that way, or we won't get the full understanding of it, And I was looking at the Proverbs the other day. Now, listen, this is very interesting. I think it's Proverbs 18:21, and this is what it says. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. This is what it says. There is life and death in the tongue. Life and death in the tongue, and those who eat the fruit of it, therefore, whatever it may be, whether it be good fruit or bad fruit, we've talked about before, we've used that allegory before on your show about good and bad fruit that people produce. There is power of life and death in words. Absolutely. There is power of life and death in the human tongue. Shakespeare said that a lot of graves have been dug not with shovels, but with the human tongue. That's a very interesting allegory too. What's going on with that? We have to be very careful sometimes about what we say to other people. They may take it the wrong way, I've had a recent incident where something I said was taken absolutely the wrong way. It wasn't meant that way. But that's what, I've said this before. It's my job to say what I'm going to say, and it's your job to understand it correctly. Hopefully you will. But things happen when that doesn't occur. You have a misunderstanding, but that's okay. That's human too. We can misunderstand each other sometimes. But we shouldn't go to the extreme of me wanting to cut your throat because I do that, But what we're seeing in the world today, and what makes this so interesting to me, is not just the fact that I disagree with you or you disagree with me. There comes a point, a line we should not cross. We hate that person for that. That's a very strong emotion. And the counter to hatred is love. Okay, if you don't have love for your fellow man or woman, as the case may be, you're lacking something. And that's when that void, that vacuum gets filled up with hate if you're not careful, with darkness. When there's no light and love there, darkness and hatred rush in and fill that space up, I think this is what Jesus meant when he said in the Bible, if your eye be dark, your whole eye be dark, then how great is that darkness? It overwhelms you, that darkness does, if you let it in. And I think that's what's going on in the world today. We're letting a lot of this darkness in us when we should not. We're crossing that spiritual line when we shouldn't, over into hatred against our fellow human beings just because they happen to disagree with us or they see things differently. Or you might be a different color than I am, or you might come from a different country than I do, or you might have a different religion that I have. There is a line here drawn in the sand that says, hey, once you step over this line, you're going into the darkness. You're going into the hatred part. Just because you disagree with someone should not mean that you hate that person. just because I don't like everything you say, I should not be trying to shut you up. You have just as much a right to say what you want to say as I do. And we should do that. But people do not believe this anymore. They don't want to hear you. They want to counsel you. And this, you know what this is? This is darkness. This hatred is dehumanizing you. That's what it's doing. They're dehumanizing. When they counsel you and they say, "Oh, I'm going to cut you out of my life completely," or "I'm going to cut you off," you no longer have a voice. Then they have dehumanized you. What if you got a letter tomorrow, Shanty, from the government, and they said, "Chantelle Meyburgh, we don't like what you've been saying. We don't like what you've been saying on your program. We think it's hatred, or we think it's wrong. We think it's not right. We're going to shut you down. We're going to cut your voice off. We're going to counsel you." Where does that get good? Huh? Why are they doing that? They are dehumanizing you for complete control and power over you for that purpose, to take your voice away from you. You know, I say something on my own podcast. Every time that I produce it, I tell people, and I say, "You're listening to me. This is not just my podcast alone. You have a voice here on this podcast too, just like I do. You have a voice. I want people to have a voice. I don't think it's right. I think it's wrong on many different levels to shut people down, to counsel people out, dehumanize people, and say you no longer matter. That's a horrible thing to do to somebody. What if I were to tell you that tomorrow? Shanty, you no longer matter. You're not human to me anymore. You don't matter. That is complete cancellation. We should never ever reach that point where we cancel out another human being just because we disagree with them, or just because we don't want to hear their voice. They have as much a right. You have as much right as I do to have a voice, no matter what it is, whatever your opinion is. You have that right. And you know, I've talked about this on your show before, and we definitely need to do a show on this one day, definitely. Your creator has given you certain rights, okay? The government didn't give them to you. Man did not give you these things. Congress did not give you. Senators did not give. God alone gave you certain rights that are yours. He gave these to you. They're part of you. They're part of the makeup of you. Don't you ever let anybody take your rights away from you, because that does what? Dehumanizes you. It takes your humanity away. It is a direct attack upon your soul when they do this. And there are rights that are physical rights, you know, like you have the right to be happy, you have the right to safety, you have that right, but you also have spiritual rights that your creator has given you. You have just as many spiritual rights as you have physical rights, or rights of law, or whatever, however you want to put that. Those spiritual rights should never be violated. And one of those spiritual rights is that you are a human being. No one has or should have the ability to shut you down, cancel you out, just because they want to dehumanize you. Because when they take your humanity away from you, you're no better than a bug on the ground to them. That's it. They'll step on you and not think twice about it. And this is the number one thing, Shanty, and as a law enforcement officer, I've studied this over the years too, deep into criminology. This is the number one thing that serial killers do to you before they kill you. They dehumanize you. You're no longer another fellow human being to them. That's why they will cut your throat and not think twice about it. That's why a lot of these people walking around out there on the streets right now don't look at you as a fellow human being, somebody that has a soul, that has pain and feelings and loneliness and emotions and all that. They don't look upon you that way anymore. They take that away from you. But that is a God-given right. Your humanity, your soul was given to you by your creator. And anyone who threatens that, anyone that tries to take that away, anybody that tries to cancel that out and shut it down are absolutely 110% wrong. No matter which way you look at it, they're in the wrong. And they can come up with a lot of reasons to do it. Oh, I don't like you anymore. What you're saying is wrong. What you're saying is evil. I don't want you in my life anymore. I'm gonna cut you off right now. I'm gonna cut you out. Oh, and I'll be so much better for it. That's not an excuse. That's a very flimsy excuse to cut somebody out, to dehumanize someone. Whenever you do that to someone, I don't care how much you don't agree with them, you are doing the ultimate disrespect to those people. You're taking their humanity away from them. What right do you have to do that? You don't. That's only the right that your creator has. You don't have that. You never had that right to begin with, to take somebody else's humanity away from them just because you don't like what they say, or you disagree with them, or you don't like what color they are, you don't like the way they look, or they're not beautiful enough for you, or they're not resonating on your level. Whatever the excuse is, you do not have that right. But yet, that's where hatred begins. That's where it blooms in the garden of discourse. Because it gets a root there and grows a dark, evil plant in your life. And it will take over your life to the point where you don't see fellow human beings as people like you. I've talked about this before. Did a sermon on it one time. When I look at you, I should not just see you, Shanty. I should not see a female, or male as the case may be, whoever it is I'm looking at. I should not just see that. I should see you as a fellow child of God. You are owed a certain amount of respect, because God has no respect of persons. He loves us all the same. And that's what we should be trying to do. We should look at our fellow human being that way and say, you deserve respect because God loves you just as much as he loves me. He doesn't love me because my bank account is bigger. He doesn't love me because I'm beautiful. He doesn't love me because I've got a yacht and some Rolls Royces in the garage. He doesn't love you for that. He sees you not on the outside of what you are, but on what's on the inside. And that's what we should be doing to our fellow human beings. When I look at you, I should see somebody that can be lonely and can be hurt, somebody that can cry and laugh, or somebody that has emotions, somebody that is a living human being, just like me. I can never lose that image of you, because once I do, guess what? I have dehumanized you. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing on a big scale today, folks. Just because we disagree. Am I going to shoot somebody just because I disagree with what their politics is? Or am I going to stab you with a knife because I don't like what dress you're wearing today? I mean, come on, where does it stop? Where does it stop? It's not going to stop unless we stop it. It's going to go on, and that plant's going to bloom, that dark, evil plant's going to bloom in our lives unless we cut it down and get rid of it, eradicate it by the roots. And you know what you do that with? You do that with a shovel of love and understanding and mercy and forgiveness and light. And most of all, though, love. Love is the true enemy of hatred. And if you don't have love in your heart, not just for your dog or your house or your car, don't have love for items, folks. You need to love your fellow man and woman. That's what you need to do. And see them as another human being just like you. No better, no worse, okay? No better, no worse. That's the way you need to look at it. And I'm going to tell you something else. When you treat people and you deal with people, you need to deal with them along a same, even, equal line. You shouldn't put one person above another person in your sight. No matter what they are, no matter how much money they got, how much power they have, you should talk to the gardener just like you talk to the boss. They should be on the same level with you in your mind as human beings. We need to start treating each other equally and fairly and be fair. If I can't do something for someone that I can't do it for you. And if I can't do it for you, I can't do it for someone else. Just because there's a difference here. If I can't do something for you, I shouldn't do it for anyone else. That's the way it should be. That's the way fair. And that's why God meant when he said in his word, it rains on the just and the unjust alike. Sometimes it pours, of course, but it rains on us justly. And I've had a lot of people ask me that over the years. Why did this happen to me? I'm a good person. Why did this happen to me? It rains on the just and the unjust. This is God. This is the way God's got everything set up. The rain doesn't care who you are when it falls on you, unless you got an umbrella. The rain doesn't care. It's going to fall on you anyway. It's going to rain on you or snow on you or whatever it's doing. It has no respect of you, and God has no respect of persons. I was always taught that from my younger days. God doesn't love you any more than he loves anybody else, because he loves us all the same. Did you hear that? He loves us all the same. He doesn't love you any more better than he loves me. A lot of wars have been fought over that. Look, I'm going to come in and wipe your country out because God loves us better than he loves you. That's not true, folks. That's not true. Nowhere in the Word of God does it say that. God loves everybody the same. God treats everybody the same. And that's the way we should be doing, and we should treat them fairly and goodly, because they are other children of God just like we are. God has no respect to persons. And what did I say earlier? He doesn't look at what clothes you're wearing. God's not going to send you a memorandum and say, Chantelle, I don't like the way you're doing your hair. He doesn't look at that. He looks at your heart, your soul, what your intentions are. Whether they're good or bad, or what, where are you coming from with that? That's where he's really looking at. Where are you coming from? Not what clothes you're wearing, or how you do your hair or your makeup or whatever. He doesn't see that. Why are we getting stuck on stuff like that? Why are we sweating these little small details when they don't really matter? What does it matter what color skin you have? What does it matter what color hair you have, the color of your eyes? You still got eyes, you still got skin, you got hair, you're still a human being. No matter what. But we're losing that. That's the problem here. That's where hatred starts. We're dehumanizing people. We don't feel for them anymore. And that's why we talk about narcissists a lot. Narcissism is running rampant and wild in this world, folks. Because all we're caring about is ourselves. We don't see anything but ourselves. What's in it for me? What's me, 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 me? I don't care anything about you. I can dehumanize you. I can cancel you out. I can cut you out tomorrow. You don't matter. That's what you're saying. When you do that to someone, you're saying, I don't care about you. I don't love you. I don't care what happens to you. You don't matter. Well, God does not hold up with that kind of stuff. God does not believe in that kind of stuff. God doesn't cancel people out because of things like that. That's it. We should not be doing that. But that's what hatred does. Hatred dehumanizes, takes that spirit away, makes us focus on our own selves when we should be looking at the people around us, at the things going on around us. That's the thing about narcissists. They are blind. They are blind to everything and everyone around them. They're only concerned with what? Themselves. And if we get in that kind of spiritual state in this world, folks, we have sunk our little boat already. I'm afraid so. Because once we turn that way, once we start turning inward and see nothing but what, and loving only ourselves, and that's what that is. Self-love is the extreme. Now, you should love yourself to want to take care of yourself and to live right and have a good. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about love to the point where you don't love anything else but yourself. That is a dangerous, dangerous aspect to get into. Guess what happens when you do that? Things change in your brain, okay? You start seeing right as wrong, and wrong is right. Things get reversed here. Bitter is sweet, and sweet is bitter. And you don't have truth in you anymore. Truth leaves out of you. It is replaced with darkness and hatred. And that's where that plant starts growing in your life. That evil, dark, insidious plant of hatred grows in your life, your life's garden, and it starts taking over everything. If it had its own little corner and stayed there, it'd be all right. But it don't do that. It takes over everything. You know, where I live, we have a plant that I think originally came from Africa, called a kudzu vine. You plant it in your yard, it will take over everything. It will eradicate everything. That's just the way it does. And that's the way the plant of hatred, when it starts growing in your garden, it wipes everything else out. And here's what it does. It not only takes my humanity away from me, it takes your humanity away from you. You're no longer human anymore. When you get into this state, you have removed your own soul. You've sold it out. You are no longer human. And when you're no longer human, you don't see me as a human being. You don't see anybody else as a human being. So your state is just as bad as the state you're putting me in. So what's happening here? Darkness is taking over. Darkness is rooting out the light and love in our lives, folks. And we're letting it do that. And that's what this discourse of hatred is all about. We talk about it, but it's a real living thing in our world. And it is a dangerous thing. No matter however it turns up as prejudice or just getting rid of one group of people because we don't like them. You know, that's what happens when this stuff starts taking root in our lives. We lose our course. We lose our focus on what really truly matters in this world. If I say to you tomorrow, I'll cancel you because I don't like you, I don't agree with you, you disappointed me, or whatever the situation is. If I cut you off and dehumanize you, then I am saying basically, you don't matter to me anymore. You're not human to me anymore. This is the extreme goal of hatred right here. That's what it's doing. This is what hatred does to you. And that's why we're talking about it today. It's one of the most dangerous things on this planet. It's not nuclear weapons. It's not guns. Guns are inanimate objects. It's not knives. You know, I think even knives are being banned in Australia now because so many people have been killed with them. What are they going to do when they want to cut meat? You know, that's my question. But anyway, what's going on with this? You know, there used to be a poem. I don't know if I ever told you about this, Shannon, but I like to read this poem on your show sometime. I got to find it. But it makes a very valid point. This town had a problem. They had a cliff in this town, and people kept falling off this cliff and dying. They kept falling off the cliff and falling down in the valley and on the rocks below and getting killed. So the town had a meeting one day. And the town said, you know, folks, we got a bad problem here. People being killed up there on the cliff, okay? We got to do something about it. So half of the town voted to put a fence around the cliff. But the other half of the town voted to have an ambulance down in the valley to pick the people up that falls off the cliff. Who do you vote with? Do you vote for the fence or do you vote for the ambulance? Luckily, the vote for the fence took place and not the vote for the ambulance. It got canceled out. I'll tell you, it was a good reason why it got canceled out. It is much better to prevent people from falling over the cliff than it is to pick their broken bodies up from the valley with an ambulance, okay? It makes perfect sense, does it not? But we're not missing that point today, you know? We need to stop that hatred at the cliff. And not worry about picking people up down the valley, because if we stop that hatred on the cliff, we don't have to worry about picking people up in the valley, okay? It makes perfect sense. And if we stop hatred before it starts, we don't have to worry about it. Isn't that a wonderful concept to think about? But we got to stop it. We got to put a fence on that cliff. We got to put a fence on that cliff. If we don't, we're going to all end up dead down there in the valley. Okay, that's where we're going to end up at. And even ambulance won't help us. That's where we're headed, you know. And I've often used this allegory, and I've talked about this before. I cannot stand still and watch somebody blindfolded walk to the edge of a precipice of 100-foot cliff without trying to stop them. What kind of a person would I be if I didn't stop that person from falling over that cliff? But you know what? I saw that the other day. That poor woman that got stabbed in the neck by that guy on the bus. You know, everybody just sat there and looked at her while she sat there and bled out and died. Nobody got up and did a thing. Nobody got up. I think somebody eventually called 911, but by then she was already dead on the floor. You can see her. You actually see all this on film, okay? And they're sitting there like, you know. And the one thing is, this woman happened to be white. Everybody else on the bus was black, I think. I don't know if that had anything to do with it or what, but nobody lifted a finger to help this poor girl. Young, nice, pretty girl. She was from Ukraine, by the way. She moved to this country to get away from war and ended up being killed on this bus by this guy. And the guy that killed her, it was a black guy too. He got up, stabbed her in the neck. And they asked him later, why'd you do this? I don't know. I didn't even know her. What kind of a world have we come to, folks? It's bad enough that the guy stabbed this poor girl and killed her for no reason. As far as I know, I don't know what his reason was. I don't know. But everybody just sat there and watched her die. How can you do that? I would have got up, put my hand on that poor woman's neck, trying to stop her blood. I mean, I was taught how to do that as a policeman, you know, to keep you from bleeding out, to keep you alive until help could get there. I had full courses on that I learned to do that. Why were they just sitting there watching? They just like, oh, so one woman kind of, you know, oh, I don't want to get too close, you know. How could you sit there and let somebody die without lifting a finger to do something for them? I don't understand that. That's what we've come to, though, folks. That's the dangerous aspect of what we're coming to here. And nobody cares about you. You're not human to somebody else. If I'm sitting on a bus next to you, Shanty, and I don't consider you a fellow human being, boy, are we in a dangerous situation here. We have come to a bad situation where I don't even consider you human anymore. You know what? There was a guy one time that did that. He ran a country called Germany, and he didn't consider certain people in that country as human beings. And he murdered millions of them. Is that what we want to? Is that the world we want to live in? Is that what we want out of this society? And you know what? We sit around all day and say, "Oh, we're better than that. We fought against that. We fought a war against it. We're better than that." Are we? No, we are losing our humanity. That's what we're doing. You know, we talk a lot about people selling souls. You know, you can sell this soul, you sell that soul. Soul can't be put on a scale and weighed, okay? You don't get so many ounces of a pound of a soul. You can't sell your soul. You can't sell anybody else's soul. That's another spiritual law right there, okay? You can't sell somebody else's soul. I can't sell your soul, Sandy. It don't belong to me. But we can sell our souls, and we are selling our souls. Once we lose our humanity, we no longer have a soul. And if I don't look at you as being a fellow human, I don't believe. What I'm saying is, you're not only human, you don't matter. You don't even have a soul. That's a terrible thing to do to your fellow human being. But that's what we're doing, and we're doing it every day in small ways. Maybe not big ways. Maybe we're not going out of the way to shoot somebody because we disagree with what they're saying. Okay? And here's the guy's excuse for doing that. I shot him because he's spreading hatred around. Well, what do you think you were doing with a gun? How can you lose sight of that fact? You killed somebody because you hated them. And then you complain about they're talking about hatred? That's like me saying, oh, I hate fascists and I'm going to be a fascist to kill them. That does not make sense, folks. This is the stupidity of evil. Okay? It doesn't make any real common sense. But yet people are just blind, you know? And they say, I'm going to kill you because you kill people. That doesn't make sense. Think about it. That is a redundant statement. That is an oxymoron, as we call it in writing, okay? It is a moronic statement, okay? I'm gonna, I'm gonna lie about you because you're telling lies, or I'm gonna retaliate against you one certain way because you're doing the same thing. How can you be such a hypocrite and not even realize it? That's what I say, you know. And you know, I had a preacher tell me once years ago, it's bad enough when you're a sinner. It's a whole lot worse when you're a hypocrite about it. And that is true, folks. And we got to take these scales of hypocrisy off of our eyes and out of our minds and see our fellow human beings for what they are, other children of God just like we are, no better, no worse. You know? Unfortunately, some of them are acting worse. Unfortunately, and that's what this whole show is about today. This discourse of hatred that is taking place around us. We got to stop it. And how, Dennis, may you say, how can we do that? It starts with us, each individual. It starts with each one of us. And the way that we live our lives, the way we look at other people, the way we deal with other people, the way we need to love other people, not just ourselves. Well, we do a lot of stuff for ourselves. We do this, we do that for ourselves. We make sure we got the best food to eat. We make sure we got the best cars to drive. We make sure we got everything. We really love ourselves. If we loved our fellow humans even half that much, we would really be getting somewhere. And that's where the story lies in this moral today. You know? We need to start loving other people and not just ourselves, and not just things and items and movies and songs. We need to start loving people more. And we need to start seeing those people just like we are, people just like us. No matter what color they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what they talk about, we need. And just because I disagree with what you're saying doesn't mean I should hate you for that. Hatred, you got to remember, once you start hating something, that's when it starts. Like I said, that plant I told you starts growing. It starts growing, starts taking over. It will eventually fill your heart with nothing but hatred. That's what darkness does, folks. Darkness doesn't come in and get just a little bit of your life. It doesn't come in and occupy just a little bit of your heart. It takes over everything. That's what it does. It conquers, it corrupts, and it destroys. That's what it does best, and that's what hatred does. And darkness, what I said earlier, runs on that fuel of hatred. That's the gas that runs the engine of darkness, is hatred. It wants, and that's why it wants to control us that way by turning us against each other, so that we won't work together, so that we won't love each other, so that we won't have a common goal and see the humanity in each other. It doesn't want that. It wants us to destroy ourselves. It wants to control us. And it knows that when we work together and cooperate and love each other, we are unbeatable. But unfortunately, we never learn that lesson. You know? That's another spiritual law that our Creator gave us. When we're all working together on the same page, we are very remarkable beings. We can do things, okay? We can get things done. But unless we work together on that same page, it ain't going to happen. We're just going to keep doing the same old mistakes over and over again. And guess what? Surprise, they get worse. Mistakes always get worse. The more you compound them, the bigger they get, and the more dangerous they become. And that's what hatred is all about. It is a dangerous emotion, and we need to keep it in check. We need to keep a watch and a guard over it and not let it get out of hand, because once it gets out of hand, you have mobs of people that tear up and kill and destroy things. Once hatred takes over, it takes over our brains and our minds to comprehend and do the right things. This is what hatred does. That's why, I've had a lot of people say, why does it matter a little bit, if I hate something a little bit? Because that's where it always starts. It grows from the smallest seed to become a mighty oak tree in your life. You ever try to cut an oak tree down? That is a difficult job, because it really puts out roots that are miles deep in the earth. Okay? And if the tree of hatred is growing in your life, You got to cut that thing down. It's going to take you years maybe to root that thing out. But that's what you got to work on. That's what you got to do, because if you don't, hatred eventually, listen to this, will eventually invalidate you. Just like you invalidate other people, hatred eventually will invalidate you until you no longer have a soul. You are no longer human. This is what hatred does. This is what darkness seeks to do to us all. And we've got to guard against it. How do you do that? Light and love in your heart. They put out this darkness just like a fire. You got to pour water, the water of love and light on it to put this fire out. And don't even let it smoke anymore or smolder anymore. You got to put it out completely. And that's how you do it, with love and light. But it begins with loving your fellow human being more than yourself. And I've told this to people before. When you pray, God is not like a Sears catalog. Okay, I want this, I want that. God, give me this, give me that. That's not how you pray. That's not how you communicate with God. You put other people before yourself. This is a humble thing that you do. This is the humble prayer of a humble person. God loves a humble heart. You pray for other people, even your enemies that hate you. You pray for them. You start loving people, folks, and that will grow in your life too, much better than the darkness, much more than that, much more than hatred. Love will take over in a good way, sort of like the morning glory vines. They really take over. They're beautiful in the morning when they bloom. That's love and light in your life. And you got to let that in. You got to let that sunshine in and get rid of that darkness. Because if you don't, the darkness is going to dwell in you and take over. And eventually you will be the darkness. And there won't be any more hope for you. You don't want to ever go to that point. You don't ever want to cross that line of no return. Because guess what? There ain't no coming back from that. That's why they call the line of no return. You don't ever want to get in that dangerous spiritual situation. And that's why I say love people. Go out of the way to help people. Be kind to people. Even smile at them. Sometimes I've seen people across a crowded room smile. It makes you feel better, doesn't it? Just a smile. Simple as that. You grin a little bit. Show your teeth. What's wrong with that? People don't even do that anymore. People don't even want to open doors. I see people slam doors in front of people. They don't even. I go out of the way to hold the door for somebody, even if it's not a woman. I'll do that for a man too, if it happens to be coming that way. I mean, what's wrong with that? It doesn't hurt to do that. You're not using, any more oxygen. That's it. Start doing kind things. Start thinking about other people other than yourself. You got to get yourself off of your own mind all the time. It's me, 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 me. You got to stop that. And you got to start saying, maybe I need to think about somebody else's welfare. Maybe there's, something I can do with this person and all that. Let me tell you a quick story. A true story that happened. One day a minister was going home. He called his wife and said, honey, we need anything? I'm on the way home. So yeah, honey, said, pick up a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. Okay, we need it. So that's what he did. Okay. So he picked up, he stopped by the local store and he got a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread. And he was on the way home and he's driving down the road and God spoke to him. It's out and clear, out of nowhere. It wasn't an audible voice, it was in his mind. God spoke to him and said, turn right down here. So the minister's driving along. He said, wait a minute, God, I'm going home. Why should I turn right down? God said, nevertheless, son, turn right down here. So the minister, he turned right. He went on down the road and said, God, I don't know what you're up to here, but I'll go along with it. And God said, well, turn left here then. Turn left right here. So the minister turned left. And God said, go down the street to the third house on the right and stop right there. The minister's going, God, I really had a long, hard day here. I need to be home. My wife's looking for me. What's going on here? God said, nevertheless, stop here. So the minister stopped there and he said, now you take the bread and the milk and you walk up to the door and you knock on the door. And God said, you keep knocking until somebody comes to that door. Minister said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm crazy, I reckon, but I'll do this. So he goes, so he takes the bread and the milk, he walks up and he knocks on the door, and he's standing there. Finally, he knocks again. A couple more times he knocks. Finally, the door opens up a little bit. This little old lady comes out. She's looking at him. She said, well, what's going on? And the minister says, lady, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, okay? But he said, I'm a preacher, and God just spoke to me and told me to stop here at his house and give you this loaf of bread and this gallon of milk. And the woman's looking at him, and her eyes get real big. She said, what did you say? She said, well, I was told to give you this, gallon of milk and this loaf of bread. And this woman said, son, I was so despondent today that I woke up and I said, God, you don't love me no more. God, you must hate me. My life is terrible. I'm going to go up in the attic and hang myself because I don't even have a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk left. I have nothing left. I'm going to go up in the attic and hang myself. And I was on the way to do it when you knocked on the door. And now you're giving me a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk? And he said, and the minister said, well, lady, I guess God is trying to tell you something, isn't he? And the moral of the story is he certainly was. He was saying you need to live. You need to trust in me. You need to understand that there's still good in this world. And it's something to hold on to. There are good things in this world, folks. There's things worth fighting for. The real good stuff, the real stuff that's worth fighting for. Like friendship and goodness and love and forgiveness and kindness. Those are the things we need to really be fighting for. Not the hatred, not the dark things, not the wars against each other. What we need is that love of God in our hearts. That is the greatest power in this universe. And that's what happened on that porch with that loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. That was the love of God taking place there. God was showing the minister and the woman something. You do what I tell you to do, and you'll have the love of God in your heart. And that's where you connect with your Creator. And you really truly understand what He's trying to tell you today. You need that love in your heart. The love of God, not the love of money, not the love of somebody else, not the love of lust and romance. I'm talking about the real deal, the real love of God in your heart, which makes you love other people. It's like that old song, makes me love everybody. And that's what we all need, all of us. We need to always keep our bag filled with this and our hearts full of the love of God. Because if we don't, we're going to lose our way, folks. We're doing that now. We're losing our way. Okay. And if we don't stop now, we're going to end up falling off that cliff into the valley. Okay. We don't want to go that way. And the only thing that's going to save us from that cliff is the love of God in our hearts. And that's what we need to have to fight this discourse of hatred that's in our world today.
True, Dennis. But I say that there's no ways we can love another unless we've learned how to love ourselves. And I know you speak about I think what I'm hearing you say is you speak about self-love or loving yourself or doing things for yourself in quite a narcissistic way. I'm not speaking about that. When I talk about self-love, I talk about loving yourself enough to know that you have screwed up so many times along the way and that you are still willing to give it another opportunity to change, to do something better, to do something different. And only when you've truly understood that about yourself, when you've actually given yourself patience, kindness, non-judgment, when you've learned, when I say forgive yourself, I think forgiveness is I want to say, I understand why we use it, but it's also kind of like dangerous, because to think that people have to forgive, a very harmful perpetrator, someone that really hurt or deceived them, let's say when they were very young, right? Um, unless the person has understood their sacred contract with God and has integrated that into their lives as to why that perpetrator came into their life in whichever way it was, right? And sometimes it's a parent, sometimes it's a mother or a father or a grandparent, which for a child, especially having gone through something like SRA or any type of abuse, is very difficult to ever come back to that place where you can love from an innocent place. And what these guys do is they take away the innocence. That's the first thing they do, is they teach children how to hurt or how to be hurt. The average child does not like to hurt. They don't like to hurt animals or each other or whatever. I mean, they can be like scratchy, whatever, little monsters fighting amongst each other and pinching and biting. Yes. But when it comes to beyond a certain point, they don't like to do that. So when they get pushed, let's say in something like SRA, they get pushed to the extremes like that. They get taught a whole different set of rules. So a lot of these people that are in power today, that's all they know. They only know pain, sadness, fear, torment, torture. So it's natural for them. Things that you and I, like cuddling a kitten and loving the kitten, for example, because we love creation, absolutely irritates the living jangles out of them. They want to take that kitten and kill it because that part of their innocence has been destroyed. So without even realizing why they're doing things, they do it. It's like the victim becomes the villain because they've never had healing. They don't know another way. And unfortunately, the world is full of that right now. So that's why self-healing is so important, where you can sit down with yourself. You see, there's a fine line between self-obsession and self-healing and self-love. You've got to love yourself. We are created from the spark of God, which is unconditional love. And we have to nurture that within ourselves if we are here to live an abundant, joyful, grateful, loving, happy life. We have to nurture the God spark within us. We have to use the love of God that is within us and use that as our manna, as our healing, because God lives within us. The connection around us is obviously to the external, but that love is within our own hearts. So we have to find the strength and love to face our own fears and pains. And only when we've done that do we ourselves discover how strong we are. Do we discover how much compassion we have? Ask an SRA survivor that has become a healer what they've come through. That's what I talk about. So that love that the self-love they've taken, because all a survivor is taught is they're useless, they're worthless, they're worth nothing. They have to be somebody's pawn all the time. And unfortunately, that runs rife in the world as well. People feel like that all the time. But until such time that you go back and you start the self-love and you understand you deserve patience, you deserve kindness, you deserve to be treated in a loving way. But the way you're going to know that is through loving yourself and treating yourself in that way. And only when you've given that to yourself can you then give it to another. It's like you cannot light another candle unless your flame is burning. And that flame comes from your own heart. And that's the whole thing with why do we hate? We hate because we have not learned how to love ourselves yet. We hate the parts of ourselves that we haven't healed and that others reflect and irritate in us. So it's so important that we can go back to that part within us and realize that we are created in the light of God. We are created from love. No matter what we've done, no matter how we've done it, the light of God is always within us. We've got to spark that up. We've got to get that fire burning and reconnect with God through that, and then start acting in a different way, in a more loving way. Absolutely, your actions need to change for sure. You can't do that without loving yourself. I mean, for me, that's where it begins. You learn to love and respect yourself. And yes, you give yourself the things you need because you deserve them and you've earned them. But you don't hold on to them and use them as weapons. You are generous, you are kind, you are resourceful, and you don't have a fear of not having. Because when you walk in the light of God, you don't have a fear of not having. You know that you provided for all the time through the love of God in the most miraculous ways, many times. But you've got to believe that. And you deserve wonderful things in life. You deserve to take a trip overseas if you want to. You deserve to have a beautiful relationship. You have to realize that about yourself first, and then you're able to give it to the others. So that's why I'm saying we have to learn to love ourselves from a spiritual, upper, and lower heart level, not just one, both. And then we're able to share that love, not just kind words, but we're able to share resources because we don't fear not having. We are able to share our time because we understand God uses us as a conduit and it energizes us rather than drains our energy. It's such a subtle difference. And when we come from that way, that's when we glow and it's not taken from us. We give. People don't take from us anymore. That's the difference. Yes, Lisa D, we're having a trip to Shanti.
It's very,
Definitely.
it's true. And it's very important to remember something too, that when bad things happen to us sometimes, whether it's abuse or whatever the situation is, we tend to blame ourselves for that. We seem to, yeah, I brought it on myself, or I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, or whatever. We tend to blame ourselves, and we hold ourselves accountable for that a lot of times when it's not. Okay, that's not the case, but we tend to do that. And then another thing I tell people is you've got to learn to forgive yourself. You got to learn to forgive yourself. And if you don't forgive yourself and others for things that have happened, then God can't forgive you. You're keeping God from doing what He needs to do in that respect. So it's very important that you learn forgiveness, not just of other people, but yourself as well. Because if you don't, then it impedes you from healing. It keeps you from reaching that goal that you need to do. And this is one thing that will hold you back. So, other things like that keep you from growing spiritually, are what you got to be careful about. And yes, to a certain degree, that self love definitely has to be part of that. If you don't love yourself, if you don't forgive yourself, you're not going to reach that plateau you need to, that echelon of healing that you need to get to in order to begin that self healing and self determination and all these other things you need to do. It's just like this. I'll give you a perfect illustration. If I'm an ambulance driver and I come up on a terrible scene with people laying around dying and everything, and I say, "Oh no, I'm so upset I can't do anything. I'm ineffective." I'm not helping those people, and I'm certainly not helping myself. If I don't if I'm not ready for that, if I'm not in the position to do that of my own self, then I'm not going to be able not only to help myself, but I'm certainly not going to be able to help anybody else. That's just the way this goes. So we have to be very careful about that too. We have to learn to forgive
Well,
ourselves, and we do forgive other people. Because if we don't, it will hold us back from what we truly need to be doing.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And it's, I will always go back through the years of being a healer and a spiritual teacher. One thing for sure, you have to love yourself. You cannot do this without self love. And it's not a narcissistic love, it's a love that you actually feel the love, full love flows through you, and you have enough to share. It's sharing, it's like an overflowing of energy. You cannot share that with another or light their flame unless you have it flowing through you. And you can't have it flowing through you while you all, oh, I'm this and I'm so bad and I'm terrible and I should have that. Yes, of course, every day we make mistakes, but get up and rectify them. That's self love. Having the courage to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing that today. Or no, I've done enough of that now. Standing up for yourself, asserting what is in your heart. That love is not weak. That's the thing. We've been taught that we've got to give, draining ourselves all the time. How do you give if you're not receiving? And then we think others have got to give to us in order to fill our cup. That's not how it works. You give to yourself, and then it becomes that um, symbiotic relationship where two or three or 10 people work together and we're all giving to each other and we're all receiving from each other, because you can't give without receiving or receive without giving in a healthy way. So it starts with learning how to love yourself, warts and all. I don't care if you're the world's dirtiest murderer. If you can sit there in your murdering cell and say, I am worthy of love. I don't know how, why, what, where, when, but if you can acknowledge that to yourself, because the only reason you
And
got to be
you know,
sorry, I
if
think
you hate yourself,
the only reason you
if you
got to
hate
be the murderer
yourself,
to begin with.
if you hate
Yes, but
yourself, you can't love anyone else. Definitely,
the
that's
only
going to keep you
reason,
from loving other people. You first got to love yourself,
yeah,
and we're not talking about narcissistic love. We're
totally.
not talking about
So
focused love. Yeah,
no, we're talking about upper heart love, universal love. You learn that love universally, then you start applying it to your own life. You have to give it to yourself first through healing, through taking the time to heal. If you've been one of these people that's been a complete martyr and has thought you've got to give to others in order to have acceptance and to be accepted by people, you've got to stop that. And you've got to realize that's exactly the thing that's draining you. And then you've got to learn how to turn off certain taps around you, put down boundaries, and start nurturing your own garden. You are your own garden. You've got to start weeding out the weeds, planting the beautiful flowers and the seeds. And it begins there. And the only reason you became the murderer to begin with is because you have no love. You started through lack of humanity, being told you're worthless, being treated in the way that you are worthless, that pain and suffering is the only way on this planet. But if you can come to that place and realize that I am worthy of love, thank you, God, I am worthy of love. Show me how to see my worth. And that's your prayer. That's your prayer. Show me, God, how to see my worth. And then you got to watch for the signs around you, because God talks to us in signs. God will send you a person. God will send you a kindness. God will send you a generous offer. God might even open up an opportunity for you to have a job. I don't know. That maybe if you're on death row, suddenly there's a lawyer that will take your case and relook at it. That's what happens when we accept that we are worthy of love and we choose to make the change. We have to choose to walk a different path then. It's difficult. So we walk the path back from sin. And that path back from sin requires that you actually apologize to people. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes maybe they're not there anymore. But you then make it right in your heart between you and God. And those that are there, if you've stolen money from someone and you can't give it back, you go there and you apologize and you make a plan. If you've, I don't know, done whatever, own it. Be
Yeah,
truthful.
that's exactly why the Word of God says that you should never let the sun go down on your anger. You have to go make it right with that person. If you can't, then you got, you can't move on from that if you don't. Or like you try to make something right no matter what the situation is, and if you can't, that's fine too. I mean, if it's impossible to do it, you've done your best. And, I've often said that, Shanty, that even the angels in heaven can only do their best. That's all God ever requires of you, for you to do your best. You know, uh, and that's where we need to come from. Definitely, when it comes to especially self healing and all that, we do the best that we can do, and once we've done that, we fulfill that obligation. But yes, if you got something going on with somebody, you need to have a heart with forgiveness and mercy, you know. And the Bible teaches us, I talked about this the other day, if you do not show mercy and forgiveness, you can't get forgiveness, okay? And like I said earlier, you got to forgive yourself just like you forgive others too. Because if you don't, it will keep you from getting that forgiveness that you need as well. This is another spiritual concept, a
Keeps you
spiritual
stuck.
law. Yeah, definitely.
Keeps you stuck in that cycle of he said, she said, you did, I did, they did, we did. It's like that's exactly what we're seeing in the world around us today. This fighting, this absolute ridiculous division and conquer. And the only way they can do it is because they've been able to fragment us from ourselves, from each other, right? That's the only reason they've been able to do it. They've dumbed us down, and we've allowed it. We've allowed it, but it's been difficult not to, because we're born into a system that is fully participating in all this stuff already. But thankfully, there are some clever, smart people out there who remind us of what's real and good and important in this life. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yay, Dennis.
That's true.
Well, I say thank you so, so much for a great show with you again this evening, this morning, afternoon for you. And yeah, I always say, and we speak about this a lot. This truly is a vibrational war. People call it a spiritual war. I say it's all about your vibration, it's your resonance. You're going to be fighting and all that stuff backwards, forwards. You're going to get stuck right in that matrix. You've got to love, forgive, express yourself, stand up for yourself, stand up for those around you, love those around you enough to share.
Yeah.
You can't help everyone, but the guy on the street, the $20 that you give him today might just be the thing that saves his life. I always look at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So be generous, be kind, be caring. Let's take care of each other. And, we build an awesome community. That's my objective on this channel. And I'm so glad that, we just turned 5, that it's happening that way. That our community, we've got a great community. We take care of each other. If someone's in trouble, we all club in, and that's the way it is. This is the global community that
Mm-hmm.
I love to share and give a platform for. So yeah, I
Well,
think
it's
the more of
it's
us who do
good
the
that
stuff that we're doing here, the world
It's
definitely
good we can
becomes a
get
better
together and
place.
talk about these things, that's what real discourse is.
Yeah.
Not discourse of hatred, but discourse of that. Well, we
Perfect.
can get together and talk about these things and connect with each other and have a voice with each other. That's very important. And that's what I commemorate you and your show and your podcast here for. You're doing a very important work when you do that. And that is where, and I'm glad that you've been around. I hope you will be here 55 more years. Okay.
Oh, yes. Y'all are not getting rid of this little channel in a hurry.
There you
And
go.
even if
All
I'm
right.
not around anymore, trust me, there'll be those that take over from me for sure. Dennis, thank you so much. Is there anything, maybe you want to tell the viewers where you are for the rest of the week, what you're up to? We've got your little banner flying across the bottom of the screen with your website and stuff. But yeah, do you want to let the viewers know where you're at?
Okay, well, last night I did a show on Hunting the Shadows. That was at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We had a great show. As a matter of fact, it was part one of how to secure the safety of your home against spiritual stuff. And I'm going to be doing a part two on that next week, next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. on Hunting the Shadows. And that's going to be interesting. So stay tuned for that. That'll be part two. I'm going to give a lot of tips on how you can, you know, safeguard your home against spiritual forces. Definitely. Also, to tomorrow night, I will be doing Paranormal Point of View. That's where we do reviews of books and movies and stuff like that have that paranormal kind of a slant to them. And then Monday nights I do with my friend Gerald Fountain. We both do a show called The Road Less Traveled. We talk about some of the off subjects. I think last week we did something about pyramids all over the world, not just in Egypt. They're everywhere. And that was an interesting show. So if you want to see any of these shows, you can check them out on Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel. They're in the library and you can check them out and watch them again. Also, if anyone wants to contact me for anything, you can get in touch with me at denniswcarroll.com. And my books are available on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. I think you got a couple of books there, Shannon, and
I
they're
do.
available. Yeah, available for purchase there as well.
Wonderful, Dennis. Thank you so, so, so much. And everybody, I appreciate you so much for joining us again. Really happy to have you all here and participating in the conversation. And as usual, as always, please like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment. It helps to get the algorithms up. And we really appreciate you for doing that. Always good to get this information out. Thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Take good care of yourselves. And I shall see you tomorrow. Mwah. Goodbye.